Okay, we only got a couple of videos more to go before the job is finished, but check out the color of the house now. The weather really improved in the last couple of weeks and gave us a perfect opportunity to start finishing the outside. It's halfway done. We got some more painting to do, but check out how bold the house looks right now. It's exactly as the designer had envisioned it. Let's come on inside. Wow, I love seeing this stage of the house. This is where things are just about finished up. At the same time, there's a ton of little things that you have to organize. A lot of details which gotta be touched up. This is where you wanna make that list. As complete as it may look, there could be a list of 100 things that you have to address before handing the house over to the owner. What I like to do at this stage is walk through with the owner, upon our completion, identify things which could be done a little bit better or touched up better to the satisfaction of both the homeowner and the contractor. Therefore, the customer, when he comes in, he's like, oh, it's done exactly the way I wanted it. The contractor delivered. And most importantly, you have to assign a timeline for when these things can be finished off, because it could drag on a long time. So the deficiency list or the final list starts at this stage. So as part of this list that we're gonna make, there could be caulking joints, it could be miter joints, it could be doors having to be realigned, it could be light switches, it could be anything. But the list will include all the little things which we both pick up on. It could be a pretty quick list or it could drag on, but nevertheless, the list's gotta be made. So timelines for completion are very important for many reasons. For one, the contractor wants to get off the job. Secondly, the homeowner wants to get into the house. He might have to organize renters. He might have to do moving for his furniture and belongings. He may have to report to the bank for mortgage discharges and stuff. And all that relies on occupancy permits, final inspections, and all the little things that need to be done prior to handing over the house to the contractor. So you can imagine, even at this stage, no matter how complete the house looks, there's a whole bunch of things that still need to be done to get to the final completion and occupancy stage. So it's always good to have that list made, set a timeline, establish expectations with the homeowner, and we can all move on to the next job, next project. So one thing we didn't talk about in detail earlier on in the videos is the heating system for the house. We did talk about the radiant floor heating system, and you remember having those pipes all over the ground before the concrete was poured, but look at the equipment that's involved in doing it. What we have here is a condensing wall boiler, and what this does, it heats up the cold water that comes in. It sends the heated water into the pipes underground so it circulates. It's constantly circulating. And it takes usually about 2 hours or 3 hours from beginning to get to that right temperature, called the ambient room temperature. The second function for this boiler is it heats up water for potable use. And the water that is heated up gets stored into this tank. Contrary to traditional tanks, this tank does not have its own heating element. This is what they call a storage tank or a dummy tank. All it does is stores water ready for use for your showers, hot water, baths, for your dishwasher, any kind of hot water coming out of your taps comes from here. When it runs out, it just fills back up right away, which is run through a heat exchanger, so it's constantly working. Most new houses in Vancouver would be using the same type of system. It's a natural gas fired type of wall condensing boiler. However, because the bylaw has been changed recently, this would be one of the last houses allowed to use this type of system. The new system requires a heat pump style type of radiant floor heating system, which is fairly new. We haven't done any houses like that yet, but I'm excited to do one in the future. So this is how the houses in Vancouver are heated. Radiant floor heating throughout, all powered by a wall condensing boiler. Let's talk about summertime, air conditioning. Most houses in Vancouver would consider air conditioning in their houses. Let's go have a look at this one. Having an air conditioning in a Vancouver house is actually quite common. Air conditioning is made up of two parts. One is an air handler, which is basically a big tube with a fan in it that controls the air movement inside the house. It's got the refrigeration tubes in there, so the air blows past the cold refrigeration tubes, and the cold air, it gets distributed through the house, and the fan pushes the air through those vents. And the second piece of the air conditioning unit is always placed outside, and that's called the condenser. What I usually like to suggest to the homeowners when it comes to installing air conditioning is to, how about install a heat pump rather than an air conditioning unit? What a heat pump does, it provides the cooling, same as for air conditioning units, but it also gives you the heating component. So if you were to have the heat pump in house, coupled with the radiant floor heating, that gives you a dual heating system. In the event you prefer the forced air over the radiant floor, or should the natural gas cut out, you have a backup system. It's not necessary, but it's only a few $1,000s. You get that extra reassurance that there's always heating for your house. When it comes to installing the air handlers in the house, they're typically found in the conditioned areas of the house, meaning no longer allowed to put inside the attics unless you build a conditioned room for that unit. So builders, this is very typical, you already know this, but air conditioning or heat pump air handlers, they need a discharge for their condensation to be drained to. So here is the case, comes out of here, there's a trap there, there's a vent there, and this goes to the nearest vanity sink, which happens to be on the other side of the wall, comes up through here and drains nicely right here. Okay. So let's go outside and have a look at the outside unit, which is located on the rooftop of this house. This is our outside unit, aka the condenser. A lot of times they're mounted in the backyard somewhere on a concrete pad. We chose to mount it on the roof level, and when doing so, you may want to consider a couple things. Having the anti-vibration pedestals so that you don't have any vibrations going directly onto the roof level. It helps to absorb some of that shaking noise. You also want to make sure when your refrigerant lines, your control lines, and your power lines that connect to your main system, when they exit your house, it usually comes in a big cluster. We talked about air tightness in the past, and this is where a lot of people fail to address. Air can really leak out of these areas. You can just imagine, if it wasn't all packaged up like that, if it wasn't coming out of a central area or a boot, the air can leak all in between those pipes where it goes into the house. And we find a lot of times that that is one of the huge failures when it comes to air tightness of a house. And of course, you want to have your disconnect, your electrical disconnect, as close as possible to the unit. Here we have liquid tight connectors, pretty standard, but always have a nice convenient spot that's closest to the machine in case you need to service the unit. So similar to the main house, let's check out the heating system for the laneway house. So similar to the main house, we have a wall condensing boiler in the laneway house, which provides the heated water for the circulated radiant floor heating. It also provides the hot water for your showers, your dishwasher, any portable use. One difference though is you will not see a storage tank for the laneway house. Now the reason for that is this unit can actually handle the on-demand water usage for the fixtures installed in this laneway house. Being only 2 showers and a kitchen sink, it can easily handle the demand. For larger houses, they would have to store the water in a larger tank, but for laneway house, it's perfectly okay to use just the wall condensing boiler to supply the hot water demand. And again, very similar to the way the house was built, we also have a dual heating system for the laneway house. Again, provides the heating and cooling for forced air. But we also have the radiant floor heating that's inside the concrete slab.